All right, welcome one and all to the second half of the Big Three IDP Megapod, recapping the 2020 NFL Draft. I'm joined in StreamYard by the one and only Adam Markham and a special guest tonight, Lee Andrews, Dr. Leesus himself. Lee, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me, Josh. It's a privilege and an honor to be in here with some IDP powerhouses, so I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Lee is part of what we affectionately call the Little Three. These are three guys from our league that have been doing the XFFL pod since me and Adam and Bobby went Hollywood and started the Big Three pod. So we had Ben on the offensive side. Now we're having Lee on the defensive side. And you know who it is, our fourth guest here. It's the one and only 4for4s and DFL's Mike Woellert. Mike, how are you, sir?
I am doing great. Another draft in the books, and ready for that carpal tunnel to start setting in, to start typing away.
I was going to say, I know you've already been a bit of a grind boy here since the draft has ended. You said that you were working on a piece for 4for4 that's going to be coming out here pretty soon, I take it?
Yep, linebackers are in the can. Defensive line is next. Defensive back is all typed up. Like, I know who I'm writing about, and it's just a matter of putting it to Google and sending it off to the editors.
That's right. Well, we're really thrilled to have you, Mike. This has been a real treat to have you on here a whole lot recently, previewing free agency, talking about some of these rookies. So now we're going to do the fun part. The preview, the build up, the anticipation is so much fun, but we love when we actually have some data to talk about. The NFL draft just wrapped up probably an hour or so ago. So before we get into the top landing spots for some of these IDP guys, let's just recap how we felt about our team's draft. I'm a Colts fan. Adam, you're a Vikings fan. Lee, you're a Rams fan. And Mike, you're a Browns fan. So let's start with you, Mike. How did you feel about the Browns draft overall?
Overall, I thought they hit it out of the park with Andrew Berry. I was a little worried that there'd be some trade downs just because Paul DePodesta in the past, they've always liked to draft and accumulate picks. But at this point, I think their roster is relatively built. There's no really need to accumulate more draft picks. It's now just building, and let's roll with the team. I thought they were going to go Tristan Wirfs. Wills is fine. He should be a good run blocker, so that'll certainly help Nick Chubb. I love the Delpit pick, and they filled in with some nice pieces overall. I mean, overall, I'm seeing some really good positive reviews, but overall, I was pretty happy with the draft.
Nice. I agree. I thought they were going worse there as well. So it was a little bit of you figured they were going offensive lineman there, right?
Oh yeah. I think as soon as even Simmons was gone, I think that really took Simmons out, but I was hoping they weren't going to trade down. I had a feeling as soon as those offensive linemen started to fall a little bit, I had a feeling that 2 out of their 3 were going to be available. So I really didn't see any reason to trade down, and they didn't.
Yeah, I was a little surprised that Andrew Thomas was the first offensive lineman to go.
Yeah, Giants made a good pick. Who knew?
They did. So, Addy, let's talk about your Vikings. This was a fun draft for the Vikes. How'd you feel about it now that day 3 is done?
Yeah, I thought they did great. I thought I loved the first pick with Justin Jefferson. That was great Diggs replacement. So love that there. And then we got Gladney at corner, so we addressed 2 of the biggest needs: wide receiver and corner. The third pick was offensive lineman, another huge need. I think we got another corner. And then we got Troy Dye late as well in the 4th round.
That's nice.
That was my guy.
I can't wait to hear Mike talk about Troy Dye. So, I think the Vikings did a great job this year.
Yeah, I agree. I loved Justin Jefferson there for you all. That was one, I think you all were talking about it on the live stream that you did with the IDP guys. And you were saying, you'd love to see a Diggs replacement here. And then it is Justin Jefferson. So that's one of those where you're just like, oh my gosh, it makes sense. And we made the smart pick.
Yeah, it's always unusual when the Vikings do, something that you like and it pleases you. Weird.
Yes. Now, as far as I think a draft that fans were happy about leads us, I don't think Rams fans were particularly thrilled with LA's draft. Take us through it.
So their two first picks, number 52 and number 57, were, in my opinion, not necessarily what we needed. That O-line last year really struggled. And our linebacker core, especially with letting Littleton go, those are the two places that we needed to address. We had Josh Jones and Zach Vaughn on the board for both picks. Instead, we take Cam Akers, which I do like Cam. He can succeed if we get our offensive line right. And then we took Van Jefferson, which I still had a problem with. I think Josh Reynolds can step up. We even still had Denzel Mims on the board there, who I would have rather had. But then we circled back. We got Terrell Lewis late. He flashed really well at Alabama. I like his play style. He's a really, really good pass rusher. That's what we need with Dante Fowler leaving. So that pick I was happy about. He's got some injury concerns. Didn't play a whole lot during his time at Alabama, but he can definitely step in. So I think the more it sinks in, the more I like the Cam Akers pick. But the Van Jefferson pick is what's making my head scratch there a little bit.
Yeah, there is a strategy for drafting that I like, which is stack your strengths. But at the same time, I typically feel like that's for teams that don't have gaping needs like you all did.
Absolutely.
So it was a bit of a head scratcher. I know you and Bobby were throwing a mutiny in our XFFL Slack, it seemed like. So you all
looking forward to the rookie draft. That's why he's pumped about Akers going there.
Bobby's got 19,000 first-round picks. So
yeah. He also was happy to see Darrell Henderson vaporized to a certain extent for Ben Ratty, because he's tried to get Henderson for years now and hasn't been able to. So it's a little bit of sweet revenge. The Colts draft, I'm pretty mixed on right now. The Michael Pittman choice there at 34th overall. We'll see. I get the big body receiver is a need for us. I think what they're essentially trying to do is what they couldn't do last year with Devin Funchess, because Funchess broke his collarbone. I'm thrilled about the Jonathan Taylor pick as a Colts fan. I am horribly shocked and crushed as a Marlon Mack owner that basically it was like Thanos snapped and now Marlon Mack is dust. The next pick there in the third round, the 85th overall pick, I did not like at all. Julian Blackman, a safety out of Utah. This was a guy who tore his ACL in December, so probably not even going to play this year for us. I get that it's a Clayton Gathers replacement, but that was I did see. I think I shared the tweet from PFF that it was their like 170th graded player, and we took him at 85 overall. So it was a pretty big reach. The only real other notable pick for me was Jacob Eason, the quarterback out of Washington, there in the fourth round at 122 overall. You know, whatever, it's fine. To see that he's going to be competing with Chad Kelly for the third string quarterback. It's like, could there have been someone there in the fourth round that maybe could have had a chance to crack the starting lineup? Because unless your three other guys die in a bus crash, Jacob Eason is not going to see the field in 2020. It's just not going to happen. So overall, I'd probably give our draft like a C, maybe a C plus at best. We'll see how it pans out.
I real quick, I think one of the funniest developments on Twitter and the draft is watching Patriots fan question and sell their allegiance to the team. Because as a Browns fan, that is absolutely hysterical to me that you're just coming off this wonderful dynasty and now you're questioning your allegiance. I just find that absolutely hysterical.
Yeah. Patriots fans, from what I've heard from people who live in Boston and were Patriots fans, real true lifers, there was a lot of Patriots bandwagon fans that jumped on when the Brady dynasty started. So I think we're about to see a lot of rats jumping off the ship here this year when they're starting Jarrett Stidham for 16 games.
Because they were bad. They were bad before Brady.
They were an afterthought.
They had that Super Bowl against the Bears where they got crushed, but they were there. But then it was basically until Bledsoe came into town.
Yeah, that they were just a an afterthought there in New England behind the Celtics and the Red Sox. And we'll see. I don't know if they have something up their sleeve or if they're just going to ride with Stidham and Hoyer. And nothing materialized in terms of the draft at QB for them. So let's talk about the draft, actually. This was the first virtual draft that we had, obviously, because of, as ESPN let us know about, because of a coronavirus pandemic. What were you all's thoughts on the draft as a whole? I'll get us going. I thought it was, like I said before we got on mic here, sort of a miracle that they pulled this off and that there wasn't some sort of 1 hour delay when a power line was cut in Bristol somewhere and ESPN lost power. So the fact that they pulled it off, I'm very, very impressed. I got a little fatigued, and this has been pointed out on Twitter, with all of the draft prospects, all of their horrifying life history, all their lost loved ones being brought up in the biggest, happiest moment of their life. That got a little old pretty quick. I literally remember one of the guys, I was like, Allie, did you hear this? I can't remember which one it was. His dad, when he was 10 years old, stumbled on a patch of gravel, fell into the street, and was struck by a pickup truck and killed.
That was LaVisca Chenault. I remember
was
that
it?
one.
Okay, yeah. So I was like,
Yeah.
Poor LaVisca has just been drafted. This is amazing. And ESPN is like, LaVisca, let us remind you about your father's tragic passing.
There was one, I think they were talking about Henry Ruggs, and they were going through his tragedy there, and then they flashed to John Gruden just celebrating so hard with it as they were talking about Henry Ruggs' tragic life there, which I thought was less than ideal for him.
Yeah, I don't know who the producers were that said, let's pull up every tragic story that's ever happened to these folks, but that was my only major knock. That and the 600 coronavirus videos. It's like, guys, we get it. We know. We're living this right now. We know it's hell out there.
They also had one for T. Higgins. It was like his mother was a recovering drug addict. Why is this necessary? What are y'all doing?
Yeah, we don't need to bring this up. If I'm his mom, I don't want it being blasted across the airwaves that I'm a recovering drug addict.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Very
so
weird.
It was very strange. But I thought, I missed the live element of it, the flashes to the crowd, the actual crowd noise, the hugs with the commissioner, seeing the shots of the city and the draft setup. I missed that a lot. I think Vegas would have been buck wild as an actual draft location. So I'm sad that is going to be delayed, I think, until they said 2022. Vegas is going to get the 2022 draft. But Mike, what were your thoughts on the first virtual draft?
I got to tell you, it was real. I know you didn't get, the chest bumps and everything, but you know what? It was kind of cool to see the settings of all the GMs and the coaches. They had their kids with them. So, I mean, they spent there was family time, and it was just kind of cool to see. It was real. And, at the same time, it's like, well, this is what we do. We draft online all the time, but it was cool to see all the setups, all the monitors, and just, I just thought it was really cool. And then, you got to see interruption, sometimes you saw interruptions. And if you do a search for Jacob Eason, I think there was a little bit of shenanigans going on between him and his girlfriend. So there was a little bit, he's putting a shirt on, and
was that him that put the shirt on?
Yeah,
as they were coming out of the back room.
Yeah,
yes,
so.
I saw this. Yes, good for him. He needed to blow off some.
Needed the stress relief. But
yeah,
I liked it. I thought it was cool to see. Just like I said, everybody in their settings. All the families were gathered around. Yeah, the Goodell was a little cheesy, but it was just funny to see the de-evolution as he went from suits to hoodie to sweatpants to just like, hey, it's the fireside chat time. What would have been funny is if he did some announcing. He said he was doing his his spring chores, and just to him seeing, he's pulling weeds and, weed whacking with the 190th pick, the Browns select. But I thought it was pretty cool. A one-time thing. Hopefully it's not a one-time thing, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, you see him like you said, pulling weeds. Like, oh hi, I didn't see you there. I'm Roger Goodell, commissioner of the NFL.
90s sitcom intro.
Yeah, seriously, that's great. So, it was nice just to have something on TV.
Yep.
The country responded in a big way. The opening night, I think, drew 15.6 million viewers. The previous record had been 12.4, so it smashed the previous viewership records. Not surprising, considering we have no live sports on TV.
Did anyone catch Vrabel's sons? One was
Yes.
Frozone from The Incredibles. The other one had the sweetest mullet I've ever seen in my life.
So he was Frozone. I was wondering what the costume was. That's awesome.
There was some stuff going on in the background of that one as well. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he had to come out and deny that his other son was on the toilet in the background. He said he was sitting on a stool. I was like, you're darn right he was sitting on some stool. He was dropping a deuce.
There was a stool involved.
There was a stool, just not the type you're talking about. So, yeah, a lot of fun. It was good to have an NFL draft. And, of course, the big benefit is now we've been previewing these prospects, doing mock drafts, dreaming up landing spots, but now we actually get to talk about some of these landing spots for the most relevant IDP players. So, Mike, we are thrilled to have you on. We're going to let you kind of drive the bus here as we go through and look at, we've picked out 17 players that we're going to walk through and talk about their landing spot, whether we like it, whether we don't like it, how it affects their standing in rookie drafts and their outlook for Dynasty. So, if you guys are ready, let's just jump into it, and let's kick things off, Mike, with the Predator himself. This is Chaisson out of Ohio State. Most people had him mocked going to the Washington Redskins, and that's what ended up happening. So Young lands in Washington. How do you like the spot there, Mike, especially with the loaded talent that the Redskins now have along the defensive line?
Yeah, real good spot, especially with them being a 43 team. So he joins a really good group of defensive linemen where he's not going to really need to carry the weight, but he's not going to probably see double and triple teams like he was used to at Ohio State, because you got Kerrigan, you've got Montez Sweat, and then you've got Deron Payne, and you got Jonathan Allen up there. So he is not, I don't think, going to see as many double or triple teams as he's seen. He's probably going to get some attention, of course, just because, hey, it's this rookie. We need to, show him, hey, welcome to the league, kid, and probably try to put him on his ass. But I think he's going to excel right away. I think, in my opinion, he might already be better than Nick Bosa. And I know that's saying a lot, but, right out of the gate, I don't foresee why he couldn't reach double-digit sacks immediately. And depending on your scoring, he's probably going to be in consideration for your first IDP in rookie drafts.
Yeah, absolutely. That was something we talked to Joey the Tooth about on our preview episode, and he said the same thing, Mike, that he thought he was a better version of Nick Bosa because he had the technical skills but had that elite athleticism that few guys possess. So, Lee, let me ask you, where are you starting to think about taking Chaisson if you're in a rookie draft right now?
Oh, with a rookie draft standard, I have a hard time trying to take a defensive player first round. But I think with Chaisson's talent, I could see him maybe going right around the 110, around that range. So late first, early second for sure.
Yeah, I like that. That's when I would be thinking about it as well. Addy, has anything changed in your mind now that Chaisson has actually landed in Washington?
Well, I think in regards to like where he's going to go in rookie drafts, I think that post-draft, he's actually been pushed down the board a little bit just because there were so many good landing spots for running backs. People are going to still want CeeDee Lamb and Jerry Jeudy.
Oh, yeah.
The landing spots not being ideal, I guess. So I could see, I think Lee's right. I could see Chaisson going to that, 110 to even like early second, depending on your league. And Isaiah Simmons, talk about like a real slide. He could probably go like late second now.
Yeah, I'd say so. Just because of, like you said, so many good offensive. The offense really was the winner of the draft in terms of, I think, rookie draft positioning. Mike, when you look at and start to piece together your preseason rankings, do you think that you'll have Chaisson inside your top 12 for defensive ends?
Top 12, he'll probably be right around there. I mean, I don't see him falling out of a top 15. I don't see a scenario where he's going to fall out of the top 15. But yeah, he's probably going to be within that top 12, top 15 range for redraft. It's just really hard not to like him. And with you guys, like I said, I agree with you guys. If I'm early on in a rookie draft, I'm taking a position player. I'm taking an offensive guy. And if I'm later on, maybe circling around, depending on my need, if there's a good offensive player that's going to slide, Chaisson, play on words here, not to chase, bringing it back with Chase Young, but it really all depends on your scoring. But I echo Simmons. I think he's going to slide, but yeah, really good draft for some really good IDB prospects. If you happen to not get those two elite guys or those two or three top guys.
Yeah, Lee, you had a nice note in here, as far as is Washington now the second best defensive line in the league behind San Francisco. And whether you have those one or two, the thought that I just had is if we think Chase Young is better than Nick Bosa, look at the rookie season that Nick Bosa had on a line that is arguably as stacked, if not more so, than Washington. So Chase Young should have a very productive rookie season if he's the player that we think he is, because he landed in a very similar situation as Nick Bosa in terms of you've got a lot of help along the defensive line. So we'll see how it pans out. He's probably still my pick, maybe him or Patrick Queen, who we'll talk about here in just a little bit for defensive rookie of the year. But let's jump to a guy that we've mentioned a couple times now, Isaiah Simmons. Addy, this was heartbreaking, and I want to start with you because I know this is a fun NFL move. It's great for the Cardinals, but for your baby Buddha and the shares that you had of your beloved son, this was not a good night.
Not good, Josh. As we all know, I'm ate up with Buddha in pretty much every IDP league I'm in, and yeah, that's going to be a mess for the most part. Figuring out who to target week to week. I do like it long term for Simmons. I for one, it's always hard to trust Jordan Hicks. I know he actually stayed healthy for 16 games last year, but he's always been someone that struggled with health. So that could be an issue at some point. Devondre Campbell just signed a 1-year deal, so that's just a short-term thing. So I don't mind Isaiah Simmons for 2021. If you can stand to be patient, I think long-term he'll be great. And him and Buddha together, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah. Did Simmons get knocked down in terms of your expectations for him landing in Arizona, Mike?
Slightly, just because he's going to be a good player. He's shaping up to be a perennial All-Pro, but there's going to be competition for numbers. There's going to be competition for production, and when you have a player like Simmons who plays all over the place, it's a good thing and a bad thing because he's not locked into one position, and necessarily, that could be kind of a down on his IDB production, because one play he could play in the slot and he may not see the ball or may not have a chance to make a play. One side he's maybe playing on the defensive line and again doesn't have a chance to make a play, as opposed to playing in one spot of the field. What your assignment is. You're either going to play the run or you may drop back into coverage, or something may come in your way. You may be able to get a play. So I think from that standpoint, I'm not completely down on Simmons. I mean, he's a good player. He can do everything, but it does kind of bring it down a little bit to me.
Yeah, it's one of those things where what makes him so special, his ability to line up anywhere, is what hurts him for IDP purposes. Just because we have no idea. It's hard enough to get any kind of consistency or reliability with a lot of these IDP guys where they're not going to crap your team week to week. you throw in kind of this jack of all trades player like Isaiah Simmons, and now that kind of frustration is only intensified because he's playing all over the field, like Mike said. Mike, I'm curious, when you look at situations like Arizona that adds all of these defensive playmakers, is sometimes with offense, it's like a rising tide lifts all boats for fantasy where everyone gets a bump up. What happens on the defensive side in your mind when a lot of defensive talent gets infused into a team?
There's different competition. I mean, instead of maybe Isaiah Simmons getting a solo tackle, maybe he's only going to get an assist because other people are converging on the ball or converging on a play. So, a team may see, oh, you know what, Simmons is lining up on this side. Let's audible and let's roll away from him because of what he can do. So when you have a guy like that, they're going to game plan maybe away from him, so he may not see as much action. Now, he's obviously very fast, so he can close in. Obviously when he was in Clemson, he was really the only guy on that defense that was really making any plays. Now you come into the league where you have veterans and you have guys that are capable of making plays. Jordan Hicks, Devondre Campbell, Buda Baker, Chandler Jones. These are all veterans. These are all guys that are capable of making plays and that can contribute. So it's not just going to fall on him. So I think in terms of he still, I think, has a pretty solid ceiling, but I think where he is, maybe his floor isn't as high as it might have been, at least in 2020. 2021 is going to be different just because, like you said, Devondre Campbell's only on a 1-year deal. So, things could change a little bit, but I think for 2020, his floor got clipped a little bit.
It did.
It's, I don't know that Tampa Bay had a pretty good offseason, but Arizona's up there as far as best off seasons.
Yeah. When your second round pick is DeAndre Hopkins, that's pretty damn good. So, Lee, I'm curious, when you were watching Simmons, was there a guy that jumped out to you that's in the league right now as far as a comp for Simmons?
Definitely. I think he played a lot like Derwin James for the last name of the Chargers. They line him up everywhere. He can be an edge rusher, nickel linebacker, slot corner, safety. In terms of speed, he's quick, if not quicker. So I think he comps pretty well to Derwin James.
Yeah, that's a great comp. And especially, if you can get Derwin James type production, of course, Derwin doesn't have anyone at the level of Buda Baker playing next to him. So we'll see how the opportunity, I think that's what we're looking at really, is how much of an opportunity is Simmons going to have to be around the ball and make plays that score you points? Because unfortunately, you don't get points for being a great NFL defender who locks people down and stops, makes the play shift to the other side and does all these things that you love defensive players to do for your team that you don't get points for. We wish that there was a way to do that, but right now there's not. So let's move on here. We know Simmons is going to be fun to watch, if nothing else, in the NFL. We'll see how his IDP future shapes up. This was another landing spot, Mike. I'm curious to get your thoughts on. I know Adam talked about it a little bit on the live stream right when it happened. Kenneth Murray landing with the Los Angeles Chargers. This was one of people's favorite linebackers coming into the draft. Kind of lands in a muddled situation in terms of the history of linebacker production there. What are your feelings on Murray landing in LA?
When it happened, I just had that immediate reaction like, you've just got to be kidding me. Of all the spots, I mean, there was Philadelphia. I think he went before Baltimore, so I don't think Baltimore had the chance to grab him. I think this was 23rd, I think. So I don't think Baltimore even had a chance to grab him. But like that area where it's like, oh, Philly, come on, pull the trigger, and no. And then he lands in Los Angeles. And at first I'm like, of all the spots where he could land, rotation from hell every year. But then I'm a little bit more cautiously optimistic. San Diego or Los Angeles, they traded a few picks to move up to get him. In my opinion, he's already probably one of the top linebackers on the team. I mean, you're looking at Denzel Perriman, who can't stay on the field. Kazir White really hasn't worked out. Drew Tranquil, yeah, he's okay, I guess. Thomas Davis is no longer there, so the linebacker group in Los Angeles leaves a lot to be desired. So I'm cautiously optimistic that Anthony Lynn will say, hey, this guy is not going to leave the field, and he is going to be a playmaker. He's going to be a leader of our defense. He's going to play and not be part of really any rotation. So I think he still has a pretty decent ceiling. If I'm in a redraft league, I'm probably I'm probably targeting veterans first before I target him, but I'm probably still, I can grab him as a third or fourth linebacker. I think I'm okay with that, but I'm cautiously optimistic that they'll play him and that he won't be subject to those rotations.
Yeah, Adam, do you think this is a situation where we've always wanted these Chargers linebackers to do something for IDP, but they've just never had a guy like Murray at that talent level, and now maybe the story will be different?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. I mean, yeah, the guys that the rotation in the last few years was like Jatavis Brown, Perriman,
Tranquil.
None of those guys were. Perriman might have been high draft capital. I think he maybe was, but yeah, Murray I think has a lot more expectations than any of those other linebackers did coming in. So yeah, I think we could see him maybe buck the trend. I believe it'll be him and Tranquil. Derwin James probably leading that team in tackles.
I tweeted it and I said, if Denzel Perriman continues to get opportunities, he has pictures, he has incriminating evidence on everybody in the Los Angeles front office if he continues to get opportunities.
He knows where the bodies are buried. Absolutely.
He does.
Yeah. So, Lee, what were your thoughts on the landing spot here? You know, the Chargers, you just kind of get the heebie-jeebies when you talk about Chargers linebackers. Are you scared off at all seeing Murray land there?
I think with Kenneth Murray's potential, I'm not too scared. Like Mike was saying, cautiously optimistic. From what I was watching, his man coverage lacks, but I think if somebody works with him, he's got the potential to be a 3-down linebacker. If he's developed right, he's got a knack for the ball. He's a very downhill player. If he can get that coverage right, I think he's got potential to be a really good 3-down linebacker and someone that I wouldn't shy away from.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, let's move on to another linebacker here who landed in a seemingly much better situation with Patrick Queen landing with the Baltimore Ravens. Mike, were you as excited as I was when you saw Queen land in Baltimore?
Yes. Yeah. This was pretty much the best case scenario for Queen to land in. I mean, there's nobody there. Andrews, LJ Fort, Chris Board, who knows? And, even still, Queen was only a 1-year starter, but he flashed on tape and he flashed. So, he's really good around the line of scrimmage, solos. He can keep up with the running backs. He can keep up with tight ends. Blitzing, I know he didn't really do much, but he could be asked to do a little bit more of that in Baltimore. But there's really no competition for tackles anywhere, not even at the safety spot. I mean, Chuck Clark he's kind of their captain, but still really no competition for tackles. So I think between the talent that Queen has and his landing spot, I have no problem going Queen over Simmons in rookie drafts, and I would take him in redraft. I think he's going to probably be a solid second linebacker, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Addy, is Queen your top rookie linebacker for this year and for dynasty purposes?
Yeah, I think so. I think he just got the best shot at being a perennial, linebacker one.
Yeah, there's just nobody there. And can't you just see this being the next great Ravens linebacker that's there for 10 to 12 years?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it should be fun. Lee, I'm curious now, as we think about rookie drafts, we've mentioned the glut of offensive talent that's going to be stocking the pipeline in the first round. Where are you taking a guy like Patrick Queen in a big play? We're in a big play league together. So I'm curious, typically defensive ends go a little bit higher in leagues like that because of the scoring format. So where would you be thinking about pulling the trigger on someone like Patrick Queen?
For me specifically, I think with Patrick Queen, he goes in there, he's going to have an immediate just run at the starting linebacker position. He's a 3-down linebacker. Honestly, he's probably right behind Chase Young for me. I would say probably middle of the second round is where I'd be okay taking the first shot at him.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Addy, in the mock draft that you all had at the end of the first segment that we had on this podcast, you took Queen at pretty early in the second round, didn't you?
I think it was 206.
206. Okay.
I think Chase Young went 201. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're going to have a lot of tough decisions there at the end of that first round and early second.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, if you do have one of those early seconds, you may, really benefit from that.
Yeah, I feel like end of the first is going to be in some ways like that tier break though, where you're like, because it's always really hard to figure out. Like we've talked about this before. Like if you're trying to trade a stud offensive piece, you can't just trade a stud defensive piece. It doesn't equate. Right. Those two pieces aren't equally valuable. So it's like, I think the end of the first is where we'll see that tier break. And it's like these 12 guys on offense, and then you slot in Chase Young at 13.
Yeah. What I was saying, what's nice about Chase Young is that he's going to retain his value. Like he might be one of the safest picks in your drafts, just because he's immediately going to be worth like at least a first and a second, probably 2 firsts. I mean, really, if you immediately sell Chase Young after your rookie draft, you'll probably get at least a first and a second, I would say.
Yes, absolutely. He holds his value. That's what you've said. Like this guy is not going to lose value. He's actually going to gain value right after the draft, probably.
Yep.
So, Mike, let's buzz through these next couple, because I know not everyone plays in a defensive tackle required league. It truly is only the sickos that indulge in such kind of torture and punishment. But these could be guys that actually are relevant in sleeper leagues where you have the defensive line designation. So the draft's top 2 defensive tackles, Derrick Brown and Javon Kinlaw. You had Derrick Brown going to the Panthers, who took all 7 of their picks on the defensive side of the ball. So you can tell the type of team that Matt Rule is trying to build down there. Javon Kinlaw lands with the 49ers. So, Mike, of these 2 guys, I'm curious, which of the 2 are you more kind of gravitating to in terms of fantasy?
Probably going towards leaning a little bit more towards Kinlaw. I think I like Kinlaw's landing spot a little bit better than Brown's. I mean, look at the 49ers. They traded away DeForest Buckner, and they land what could be a cheaper version of DeForest Buckner for the next couple of years. He's going to slot right in and play alongside Armstead and Nick Bosa. He's got a good linebacking core behind him. So, he's really good run stopper. Sacks might not be as high maybe in his rookie year. It's not really what he's kind of known for. He's kind of that disruptor, probably clog up some holes, but he's really good. He's going to really be a disruption in the run. But should play, 60 to 70% of the snaps. He's not going to be an every down guy, but he's going to play 60 to 70% of the snaps, I think. And I think he's going to be probably your DT1 in premium leagues. So I like his spot a little bit better than Brown. And I think I like Kinlaw's skill set a little bit more as well.
Yeah, that was one thing Joey said was you're going to see Kinlaw probably get more big plays, more sacks. You'll probably see Brown get more tackles, so it may depend on what kind of league you're in terms of scoring. It is interesting, Mike, you brought that up, and that was something I found very funny was that you had the 49ers trade away one of the best defensive tackles in the league for, like you said, a younger, cheaper version. And I got to thinking about that because we know the Colts, I think going into free agency, had about $90 million in cap space. So they had just gobs and gobs of money to give away. And so that trade makes a lot more sense now because if you just look at the 49ers, know they're going to have to pay Bosa. They brought back Armstead on the franchise tags. I don't know how that's progressing in terms of long-term contract talks. We'll see, but it could have been they knew they had some guys coming up they had to pay, and they could not Buckner was not one of the guys that they prioritized signing long term. So in that context, the deal makes a lot of sense. The Colts were like, we've got money, send us Buckner. You can have this pick and take your younger, cheaper defensive tackle of the future. So, yeah, I agree. I think Kinlaw is a guy I like just a smidge better than Brown. Both guys are going to be really good if you're in a defensive tackle required league. But wanted to touch on them briefly, wanted to give them their due there. But let's move on and talk about the next guy here. This is an edge guy, and it is the Jaguars pick. Help me out here with the name. I can never remember. Is this
Chaisson, baby.
Chaisson. I didn't know. I was going to go Clavon, and I was like, I know that is not right.
You gotta pronounce the K.
Chaisson Chaisson to the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Mike, we'll start with you. This was a highly thought of prospect, lands in Jacksonville. We know there had been some departures there. How do you like the fit for Chaisson?
Yeah, I really like the fit. I wanted to see him in a, like a couple of other guys. I wanted to see him in a 43. He'll slot right in, probably opposite Josh Allen. This probably more than signifies the end of Yannick Ngakoue. Although he hasn't technically been moved, he's still on the team. But he's probably going to get in there and play that edge right away. My only concern is maybe he took some plays off. Maybe he doesn't dominate as much as he could. His pressure rate wasn't as high just because maybe he was taking some of those plays off. But when he did dominate or when he did show up, he's a freak athlete. Just needs to develop a little bit in the run. He is a legit player. He'll show up, I think, when he needs to. He's kind of has the agility of kind of a linebacker, but in a defensive end frame. And but I do like the spot. They're rebuilding their defense, and he's probably going to be I'd have a feeling he's probably going to be my second defensive lineman for rookies this year.
Nice, yeah. Lee, you had a funny note in our doc. It seems like if you're a Jags fan, you're probably not surprised with the Chaisson pick here, right?
No, the Jags can never get out of the first round without drafting a D lineman of any sort. David Caldwell said, over my dead body if you're going to pick a D lineman over somebody else. So that was very on brand for Jacksonville there.
Absolutely. And it's like, I appreciate when a team knows what they're about. Like, we know the Raiders are about getting the fastest wide receiver every single year. But that hasn't really worked out great for the Jags. I know they have other issues going on, but I think over the past decade or decade plus, sorry, Mike, the only team that has fewer wins in that time frame than the Jags is the Browns. So maybe the defensive lineman first round strategy hasn't quite worked out, but they whiffed on Bortles, whiffed on bringing in our boy Big Dick Nick. So maybe it's just a matter of they have other problems, not the defensive line. So Markham, are you as high on Chaisson as it sounds like Mike is? Adam, are you with us?
I'm sorry.
He zoned out a little bit there. Hi, Adam. Welcome back.
I said,
for a second. Sorry.
Are you as high on Chaisson as Mike seems to be?
Yeah. I mean, I like him, and I like the landing spot. I'm with you guys. I'm just like, Jacksonville, let's try something different. Let's please just try something different. No one wants to stay there for one. So what happens is he'll be good and then he'll be gone. That's what happens every single time with these guys. So we got to do something else. We got to try and figure out the offense, Jacksonville. But yeah, I think it's a great spot for fantasy.
Yeah. So let's move to the first DB that we're going to talk about here. This is Xavier McKinney landing with the Giants. And Mike, did you see this pick coming? I didn't necessarily think of safety as being a big position of need for New York, but you see McKinney landing there. Maybe it was a position of need. How did you see it?
Yeah, it was an interesting choice, but I think at that point maybe he was probably one of the top players on the board. There was a big safety run that did start. You know what? I think they were I think with this pick, they're trying to find maybe their second version of Landon Collins. Same type of build, same type of safety from, again, from Alabama. I think it could end up being a good spot. I think he's going to be one of those guys that I'm going to look over again, and I might plant my flag and say, you know what? I think he's going to be a box guy. I think he's going to play up near the line of scrimmage more. I know there's Jabril Peppers. He can kind of play all over. I think Antoine is still there. But really, the Giants didn't really address any other concerns on the linebacker. It's still Blake Martinez. And I think they drafted somebody in the 7th round, Tay something, or I can't remember his name, but they really didn't address the linebacker. And I think Xavier McKinney is someone who can play up near the box. And I'm probably going to have him as my top DB, rookie DB, whether in rookie drafts or in redrafts. So I think I'm going to plant my flag on this kid.
Yeah, I like it, Mike. And hearing you mention Bethea, I went and checked, and he's actually a free agent.
Okay.
So that helps explain why they saw safety as a position of need, was because sounds like Bethea is not going to be back there. So makes a lot of sense. Addy, this was a guy that I think, in talking with Joey, he was pretty high on McKinney as well. And it seems like for the league's top defensive back, pretty nice landing spot going to New York.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that was Joey's. I think the comp that we had for him was Malcolm Jenkins, but that was his number 1 overall safety as well. What do we think about for fantasy and rookie drafts? I could see him being like a mid-3rd, maybe late.
Yeah. I don't see any reason to. I don't reach for DBs anyway. I'm sure, like all of you, but if someone were to draft him in the 2nd, I'm probably not losing. I'm still not losing sleep over it. But if I like who I've taken, my first couple of picks, and if I need a DB, and if he falls to me in the 3rd, I have no problem with him there in that 3rd round area.
And if you're someone like me who's got all this Buddha, I might be scrambling here, boys. I may need to reinforce the troops.
Yeah, seriously. So, Lee, you're in the middle of, let's say, a startup draft. It's an IDP draft, and you're staring down the choice between Jabril Peppers and Xavier McKinney. Which one are you pushing the button on?
For me, I think probably Xavier McKinney, just because he's coming in younger. Jabril Peppers has had the injury concerns anyways. He missed a little bit of the year last year. I just think I like an aggressive defensive back anyways, just because I like that style of football. So personally, I'd go Xavier McKinney. Specifically for our league, if you get points for return yards, or if you're a punt returner or anything, Jabril Peppers is nice to have. But I think overall style of play, I'd probably rather have Xavier McKinney.
Yep, I think I agree. It would depend on the league settings, though. Peppers is a nice option if you do get the return yard. It's just kind of a little cheat code player there. So let's move on to another guy with a fun-to-pronounce name, which is Yetur Gross-Matos. Lands in Carolina alongside Derrick Brown. So they're clearly trying to rebuild this defensive line that got pushed around like crazy in 2019. So this was another guy, very highly thought of, another one that ESPN loved, telling all of his life's saddest stories. But Mike, setting aside the tragedy that Gross-Matos has come from, what do you like about him as a prospect?
This was a really good spot. I really liked his spot. You could tell from the draft that Carolina wanted to fix their defense. They were one of the worst defenses. They are converting from a 34 to a 43. So I don't see Matos getting that LB designation, so he should play on the edge. I know if you play in ESPN leagues now, it really doesn't matter, but any other leagues where you do have split designations, he should remain a defensive lineman, and I really, really like the spot for Matos. I mean, I think he's going to be a problem for offensive linemen, really good athleticism. He can kick inside on sub packages. He is a little bit raw, but I think he can be a bully on the edge. He's got really good moves. He can get consistent pressure. And I think him and Brian Burns are going to be issues for opposing defense or for opposing offenses.
Yeah, this was a draft that clearly said for Matt Rule, I'm comfortable with my offense. I'm going to build up this defense, which for a long time was the heartbeat of that Carolina team. They were known as a tough physical defense. Addie, what did you think there? You got Brian Burns, like Mike said, lining up on the other side. You got Derrick Brown in the middle, but this is a team that's lost a lot of defensive talent. But they do have some up-and-coming stars. Are you worried, or do you feel better about this Carolina defense? What's your temperature on them post-draft?
Yeah, that's a good discussion. Would you guys have rather have seen them take Isaiah Simmons over Derrick Brown?
I think yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw, I think Carolina actually addressed it and said something to the effect of, yeah, we considered Simmons, but you know what? We passed on him because we thought he would be better suited on a team that needed a veteran. And I'm just like, why would you gift somebody a player like, what are you? I mean, I'm like, that can't be real. But I think Simmons probably would have been a better pick. But I think they addressed a need with corner with Bradbury gone. So,
yeah. But
yeah, I think Simmons. I think at that point you needed to take the best player available. I think Simmons was the best player available, but they addressed a need with CJ Henderson.
Yeah, it would have been nice because you have both a linebacker vacancy there and also a safety vacancy with Eric Reed being pushed out the door. So, man, I would have felt a lot better about Simmons had he landed in Carolina.
And could you imagine going from Luke Kuechly to Isaiah Simmons?
Oh gosh, I know.
That'd have been fun.
Dirty.
But I'm very happy for my Shaq Thompson shares that he's gonna eat this year.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lee.
That was a nice trade.
So you're good.
Yeah, that was the Mike Evans trade, wasn't it, Lee?
Yes, it was.
Yes, exactly. So, all right. So I think we really like Gross-Matos there in Carolina, but let's move down now to the second defensive back that we're going to talk about. And this was a guy I found very interesting in our discussion with Joey in that, and Mike, I'll be curious to get your take if you saw the same things. Joey said that Grant Delpit, the new Brown safety, great in coverage, not the best tackler. Did you notice the same thing when you were watching Delpit?
Yeah, I think that is one of my primary concerns. I think between 2018 2019, if I looked at it correctly, he had 36 missed tackles. So combination of probably bad angles or over pursuit or just maybe bad fundamentals. Yeah, 36 missed tackles is really tough, but he's a big hitter. I think he's going to play. I think he's going to really match up well against tight ends, maybe some other slot receivers. But yeah, he needs to improve tackling, and I'm hoping that's addressed. It's going to be tough with the way the league is going, just because. I don't know if you guys know this. There's an unprecedented virus spreading around the United States, so it's going to make things. Yeah, really. So the offseason.
Someone say Corona.
Yeah. So the offseason programs are going to be tough to project or tough to really predict. I think not sure how. I think Carl Joseph. He was only in for a 1 year, and I think Joseph might play more of that deep safety because I think he did more of that in Oakland, played more of the deeper safety. So I think that's probably what's going to happen with Cleveland. Delpit probably play along maybe more of the slot, maybe in the box on the line. So that's kind of what I'm projecting. But yes, he is spot on. He needs to become a better tackler.
Yeah, you all needed a safety. We talked about this a lot when we were doing the free agency preview. Mm-hmm. So you have to be excited that they filled a position of need. Mm-hmm. Do you see Delpit coming in and getting significant snaps right away?
Who else is going to play? I mean, there's nobody really there. I mean, Sheldrick Redwine, okay. I think he's already these rookies. Some of these rookies are already better than what they're replacing for Hussein, and Redwine, I think, is only entering maybe his second or his third year at most. So it's not like he's replacing a grizzled veteran that is produced. So I I think where they took him, I think you'd have to have Delpit in right at the get-go.
Yeah, Addy, is Delpit your DB2 in terms of rookies right now?
Yeah, he's in the mix. I don't know. There's a lot of those guys kind of lumped together. I think there's a definite drop off from McKinney, but I'm probably not going to target any of these safeties as far as fantasy goes. I'll wait on those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is that how you're looking at this in terms of safeties, Lee? Are you going to be reaching for any of these guys if you're in a rookie draft, or just maybe like in the 4th or 5th round, or try to grab them in the auction? What's going to be your approach with these guys?
My approach, like Adam just said, there's a significant drop off after McKinney. But just the landing spots of these guys kind of makes it hard to go and reach for them. I mean, Grant Delpit has a good spot. He's going to be coming in and being an instant starter, it sounds like. With him specifically, he has a lot of durability issues, so I question whether he'll stay healthy the whole season. But I think maybe if I was comfortable with my offense and I had a few 4th or 5th rounders to burn that were probably late, I'd take the shot. But I'd rely on more the auction there.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy. So some good Grant Delpit breakdown there, fellas. But let's move on to another DB. This one we discussed on the preview pod, had a famous father who played for the Minnesota Vikings. And it was fun because a lot of comps I saw for this guy was actually his father. This is Antoine Winfield Jr., lands in Tampa Bay to play alongside the GOAT, Tom Brady. So are you excited for this landing spot, Mike? I know safety in Tampa Bay. I've had some Jordan Whitehead shares. It's not necessarily a position that has really been solidified in recent years. Do you think Winfield helps to address that?
I hope so, but yeah, the safety DB position really has not produced a whole lot of IDP fruit from that position. So I'm a little concerned with the spot. I mean, he definitely, the bloodline is there. He's a ball hawk. That is for sure. He'll pick the ball off. If the ball comes near him, he's going to pick it off. He's really good fundamental tackler. You could tell his dad coached him up. Really good ball skills. I don't know if he's really going to play on the line all that much. He's kind of all over his snaps. I know he played mostly free safety, so I kind of think he's probably going to play a little bit more off the line. So he's probably going to be more of that big play target. But he's really, he could be one of those better real life than maybe fantasy. I think, again, only allowed, I think, a 45% completion rate. Ball hawk, got picks. So I think he's probably going to play, though, a little bit more of that center fielder, that ball hawk, as a guy who's going to get picks and try to make plays on the ball.
Yeah, I see ESPN already has him slotted in as the starting free safety for the Bucks. Alongside, he displaces Justin Evans. You had Jordan Whitehead there. It's just been a little bit of kind of like a quagmire in terms of DB production there in Tampa Bay. But like you said, Mike, if he does slot in that free safety spot, probably not a guy I'm targeting for IDP leagues. I think he'll be a really good actual NFL safety. You mentioned the tackling. That was one thing that we heard as well. This guy's a ferocious, fundamentally sound tackler. So that will be something that I'm sure, Bruce Arians is kind of an old school coach when it comes to like those kind of mental mistakes or mistakes with your technique on the football field. We know we heard 1,000 times in the run up to this draft that Jonathan Taylor probably shouldn't land in Tampa Bay with his fumbling issues because Bruce Arians will put you in the doghouse. Part of the reason David Johnson lost snaps to Chris Johnson in his rookie year. So yeah, I don't think Winfield's a guy I'm necessarily looking at in terms of IDP, but it was a nice NFL move.
Yeah, he's going to get snaps, and he's not going to piss Arians off with his lack of fundamentals. So he's going to be on the field. He's going to get snaps. It's just, is he going to get the tackles that are going to go along with those big plays to make him worthwhile to use on a weekly basis? And we'll get that. That is to be determined. We'll see it. yeah, really good football player though.
I think he'll have a lot of opportunities to create big plays because I think they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. So
Yeah. Yep.
I do like that he's a playmaker and he's going to be put in that spot often. I think so.
Yep.
Yeah, he's probably my favorite safety just to watch that I've looked at so far.
Yeah, and this will be fun to see some Vikings highlights during Tampa Bay games this year, Addy, because Tampa Bay's probably going to have like 5 or 6 primetime games, if I had to guess. So you're going to get to see some fun Vikings highlights when they talk about Winfield Jr.
Yeah, for sure. But, man, I also like the fact that Tampa Bay drafted his teammate, Tyler Johnson. That was someone I was hoping Minnesota would get. I thought that was an obvious connection with him going to Minnesota. But Tampa Bay, they had a great draft. I really like what they did.
Yeah, I was going to say, Lee, this was something you brought up here in our notes, that this continues a nice offseason for the Bucs, and you like to see them going and addressing this defensive backfield and improving what had previously been a weakness for them.
Yeah, they've always been getting burned in the backfield. For me, specifically as a Rams fan, if you look at the Rams in the Tampa Bay game last year, it was just a shootout. You could really see that the defensive backfield just get burnt every single game. So I think he's a very good, smart player. He has really good play recognition. So it's more of an NFL team help as opposed to a fantasy play for me.
Yeah, agree. So let's move on. We've talked about Winfield Jr., and now we're going to look at a guy out of the University of Tennessee. This is Darrell Taylor, lands with the Seahawks, and this is an athletic, explosive guy. Mike, do you see much of an impact here, though, for fantasy purposes with Taylor landing in Seattle?
You know what's funny? I don't remember if it was Lee or Adam mentioning Jacksonville loving their defensive ends in the first round. I think Seattle is the Jacksonville of the NFC because there's not a defensive lineman that'll escape the first round if someone is there. I think LJ Collier was a first rounder last year, if I'm not mistaken. They love their first round defensive lineman. But yeah, I do like the spot here. I mean, really, again, when you talk about landing spots, there's really no competition for him up the depth chart. Really good move. I really liked his bull rush. Had a steady workload from 17 through 19. Really good length and burst. And again, really good landing spot in Seattle. Really no competition for snaps. First rounder. I mean, I don't see Clowney coming back, and I think for 2020, I think I put him in terms of potential redraft production. He's kind of in that tier with Chaisson and Matos. I mean, I'd target him as, maybe a third defensive lineman if those other guys are gone, and, a guy that you can get redraft depending on the size of your league, and a guy that you can get maybe as your third or fourth, and, guy you can stream, guy you can plug in if there's injuries or bye weeks, and hopefully that production pays off.
Yeah, Lee, do you see this marking the end of the road here for Clowney?
Unfortunately, yeah, for me as the Clowney owner. I liked what he did last year in Seattle. He was really tearing it up. He really made a presence.
Yep.
I think, yeah, with Clowney leaving, Darrell Taylor slots nice. Like Mike said, there's no competition. So, yeah, with Clowney gone, it seems like a real good fit.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we trust Pete Carroll as a defensive coach. We know he can put some productive defenses on the field. They're just in a little bit of a rebuild phase.
Mm-hmm.
They have guys like Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright there who have been mainstays for them.
Mm-hmm.
But you're starting to see this second generation, and I think they're going to be depending pretty heavily on LJ Collier. You mentioned, was a first-round pick, and now Taylor to kind of anchor this defensive line.
I think Clowney's downfall was the $20 million asking price.
Yeah, I don't think that was received very well in the Seattle front office. So
the market is speaking in volumes.
Hey, don't worry. He's dropped it down to 18. It's okay.
Okay, there you go. A little bit of a discount. How nice of him. I saw it, someone said it would actually be kind of smart for Clowney. but this hinges in large part on if there are training camps and if there are preseason games, there will be a significant injury to a defensive end at some point before the season kicks off. So if he can hold out and wait, he will have way more leverage later in the offseason. So it just depends on what is he wanting to do.
Now, do you think he hasn't been signed because he hasn't been able to do physicals and really get those medicals checked out? Do you think had we had a normal offseason to where he could get checked out, do you think things would have changed? Or do you think it's really the asking price that is doing him in?
Yes, I think it's the asking price. Adam, do you agree?
I don't know. That's a good point. I mean, this is an off season like we've never seen before, so that definitely could. We know it's held up some other stuff during free agency and all that when that was going on. So yeah, maybe so.
But if a team had offered him $20 million, I don't think the logistical stuff matters at all.
No.
So I think he looked out there and did not like what he saw in terms of offers coming his way. So he's like, well, screw this. I'm just going to sit back and wait and see what happens.
I think if you look at it too, he missed a few games towards the end of the season last year. So the physical thing probably has some to do with it too. The asking price is huge, of course. That's a no-brainer. But we saw the same thing with Michael Brockers, where he went to get signed by the Ravens, ended up couldn't get the physical, didn't pass the physical, whatever it was, and then came back and signed with the Rams. So it could be a situation like that where they're kind of scared off by what he put out there at the end of the last season, being hurt. A lot of it's probably the asking price too. So I think that's definitely something to look at.
Yep.
Yeah. So let's move on to another defensive lineman that I'm excited for. I think he landed in a great situation here in Buffalo. This is AJ Epenesa. Mike, when you looked at the film on Epenesa, what jumped out to you the most about this guy?
I think some of his quickness and some of his moves. I'm for 2020. I think he's gonna, he's kind of that Shaq Lawson replacement, but they did bring in Mario Addison. So, but I think he can hit the 600 snap mark. So I think if he hits that 600 snap mark, I think he could have, some redraft value. But in terms of overall, I think you like him a little bit more than I do. I don't know why. There was just something about him. I don't know what it is. For landing spots, I think I like some of the other guys a little bit better, but good size though. I don't think he's going to be bullied. Pretty fluid, good hands. But yeah, if he can get that 600 snap mark, I think he could be, pretty useful in redraft, especially if they move on from Trent Murphy, because that'll free up a few extra snaps there on the edge as well.
Yeah, it's all about the snaps, as we know. Addy, where does Epenesa fall now that we actually know the landing spot in terms of your rookie defensive lineman?
He's probably going to be anywhere from DL3 to 5, somewhere in that range. I think he's going to get a lot of opportunity just because Jordan Phillips is gone, Shaq Lawson is gone. So I think he will be used right away, and Ed Oliver, that's going to be nice to have next year as a rookie.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Lee, what were your thoughts? It sounds like maybe the room's a little mixed here on the landing spot. Did you like Epenesa landing in Buffalo?
I liked it with Shaq Lawson leaving. It definitely fills that hole. For me personally, I think he just plays slow. His hands are quick. He's NFL ready, but I don't think we're going to get the type of production that a lot of people might think we will get.
Yep.
So this may be, it sounds like potentially a bit of a stash, not a guy that you're going to count on for 2020, but maybe down the road production.
Definitely.
So are you thinking maybe like a taxi squad type of deal, or do you think kind of like a good roster stash? So are you thinking like taxi squad maybe for this year, maybe next year?
Yeah, I think taxi squad would be the way to go with Epenesa. Yeah, Addy, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I don't remember what it was though.
Okay, cool. Well, that's a great place to end it for AJ. So we'll move on here to the Chiefs. landed Willie Gay Jr. Now, I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I don't know a lot about Willie. So, Mike, fill us in. Who is this? Yes, who is this Willie Gay Jr. character?
He's a guy that has off the field issues. So someone that, or a guy that Kansas City really doesn't shy away from taking, but he's had some character concerns. But when I saw him play, he looked like one of the better players that were on the field. I think he was on track for a pretty solid 2019 season with MSU, but injuries and a suspension just kind of fell the season. He's got a really good build, and I really like the landing spot in KC. Again, kind of like Baltimore, there's really nobody there to really have that is really in competition on the depth chart. One of the things that I like is that it's a good veteran locker room, plus it's a championship locker room. So he's not entering a situation where it's either a losing mentality or there's trouble going off the field. I think Tyrann Mathieu is going to be a good mentor for him. And I think as long as he has addressed those character concerns, I think he's someone who can be productive right away for Kansas City.
Yeah, like you said, not a lot of competition there. It sounds like Willie could get some run early, Addy.
Yeah, I'd like to see Tyreek Hill take him under his wing.
Yeah, gosh, I was thinking of Kareem Hunt when it came to the character issues. I forgot about the old child puncher Tyreek Hill.
Did you guys know about Edwards Hilaire was apparently involved in like a murder situation?
I saw someone tweet about this, that he literally murdered a guy. Is that like
it was legally, it was self-defense apparently. So
that's the type of guy I want on my roster.
Yeah, that's let's spin it to he saved someone's life. So
yes, and also Chiefs, can you just maybe, I don't know, go for some of these high character guys, not these guys who've been embroiled in like child abuse, killings. Like, can we just get some guys that are just normal?
Did you call them the Miami University of the NFL? Miami U.
It is the U. It is the U for sure.
Yeah, they literally could have picked any running back, and they chose the one that was going to murder. So,
yeah.
All right.
Came here to murder you, in the words of forgetting Sarah Marshall. So, good stuff on Willie Gay Jr. I like what you said, Mike, that this could be a guy to pay attention to because the opportunity could be there as long as he doesn't team up with Tyreek Hill and go on a murder spree. So great analysis there. Let's
not the mentor I want him to be around. Definitely not Hill. Stay with Mathieu, not Hill.
That's right. Stay with the honey badger. So this is a guy I know, the next one we're going to talk about here, a DB that Bobby was very high on when Joey had a choice between Ashton Davis and Jeremy Chinn to talk about as the last DB on our preview. He chose Davis. Bobby wanted him to talk about Jeremy Chinn, who lands with the Panthers. So again, we see Carolina grabbing one of these high-profile IDP guys. So with Eric Reed gone, are you intrigued at all with Jeremy Chinn, Mike?
Yes, he's still pretty raw, but with Eric Reed gone, I think he's another one of those guys that can slot in. He might play a little bit more deep, but he's very fast, cover ground, still a bit raw. He can play box, he can play slot, and he can play deep. So I think that's what he's going to be asked to do in that revamped 4-3 defense. So I think he's someone who can hit the field immediately in 2020. So I do like the spot for him.
Yeah. Lee, do you see this guy as maybe a little bit of a hybrid type player?
Definitely. I mean, with his size and his speed, he's like the mix between safety and linebacker. Mm-hmm. I think he can play well when he knows what's going on. It looks from the tape that he kind of lacks instincts and reaction time. I see he gets faked out easily, but I think that's just experience. Once he gets to Carolina and starts getting some more reps under his belt, he'll start to form pretty easily. I think he'll be a good pick.
Yeah, it seems like we've mentioned maybe don't look at some of these DBs in terms of your rookie draft, but it could be a guy that maybe, Mike, you see as potentially like a end of the year kind of a guy that's gaining steam, gaining traction. Could be a nice end of the year pickup potentially.
Yeah, it could be one of those middle of the year, end of the year waiver wire heroes. He's probably not someone in redraft that I'll probably reach for in a draft. I think he's going to go, especially in redraft leagues. I think he is probably going to go undrafted. Have him on your radar on a watch list. He'll probably be drafted in dynasty leagues, especially if you guys are playing in some insanely deep leagues where, you've got a roster 40, 45, 50 players. He's definitely going to be drafted in dynasty, but I think in redraft, I think he's probably going to go undrafted. You'll be able to pick him up potentially on the waiver wire if he gets off to a pretty good start, if he does get a starting role. So yeah, for sure. I think if he gets coached up, kind of, studies, takes his craft seriously, I think he's definitely someone who can hit the field.
Yeah, definitely will have the opportunity. I think he's going to be this year's Taylor Rapp. That's
That's a good comp.
That's a great comp. Nice job, Addy.
Thank you.
It was fun. It was fun hearing Bobby say that he's a Chinn guy. Not a body part that typically gets a lot of love, but good for Bobby admitting that he is into strong jaw lines. That's big of him.
And I don't know why whenever I hear of Chinn, I just think of Chim Richards from Anchorman. This is Dr. Chim Richards. I don't know what I think of that when I hear Chinn.
We all have our associations that we think of when we hear guys' names. So let's move now to the next guy that we're going to be talking about. This was a linebacker for the Bengals, Logan Wilson. I believe he was taken. Does anybody know off the top of their heads where Logan was taken? Was he third round?
Third round, top of the third round.
Top of the third round. That's what I thought. So, Lee, let's start with you. What were your thoughts on Logan Wilson, watching the tape, kind of studying this guy?
Yeah, with Logan Wilson, he's a great run stopper. He's got real big size, real productive. I think he is a textbook 2-down linebacker. He didn't do too well in coverage. He's very aggressive, not very agile. So that classic 2-down linebacker. I think he'll definitely dominate. He'll step right in. I think with Nick Vigil leaving too, that's a huge spot for him to slot in.
Yeah, Mike, it seems like when we talk about these linebacker deserts, places where there's lots of opportunity to be had, I know that, Addy, we're a fan of your boy Jermaine Pratt, but this, you have to admit, Mike, there's some opportunity to be had there in Cincinnati. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, especially with them not really adding any of those big name catches that were out there. They settled for what? Josh Bynes. Veteran, not someone that you're going to build around. I think they got a potential 3-down. I think he's someone who has a good build that can play the middle. And I think they got a nickel guy that can play all 3 downs. I think he's got the instincts. I think he's got the athleticism. So, I think he can play 3 downs. Now, let's just go ahead and add in our last guy that we're going to discuss here, because he lands in the same linebacking core as Logan Wilson. This is Akeem Davis-Gaither. Mike, the Bengals are clearly telling us we need to revamp this linebacking core. How do you see Pratt, Davis-Gaither, and Wilson kind of working together in the 2020 season? How's that going to shake out? Well, I really liked Davis-Gaither. I was wondering why he was dropping, and then saw a tweet this morning that he is not only dealing with a foot issue, but a potential bone-on-bone knee problem. And that explained to me, that's why he doesn't have a team. Yeah. 4th round, he was the first pick of the 4th round today. You know what? I honestly don't know what to make of it. I think this is the first I'm hearing really of the knee problem. It's a little bit of a concern. It's definitely going to put an impact on his 2020. I'll probably write him up as someone to keep an eye on and redraft for 2020 in case the knee isn't as big of a deal. But when I hear bone on bone, that just tells me, and I'm not a medical expert, but if I hear bone on bone, that just means there's nothing left in the knee. There's no cartilage, there's no nothing. And that's just going to be a degenerative issue. So there is a little bit of concern because I
really liked him, and I was ready to write him up as a guy to target. I thought he was going to be a second round pick, and read this morning, and it's a little bit of a concern. So I'll be honest, I don't really know what to make of him as of now until those medicals and until more information about his knee injury comes to light.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned, Mike, that you're not a medical professional. I'm not either, and neither is Adam. But Lee actually is a medical professional. So,
yes.
Dr. Leesus, educate
us. How wrong was I?
Educate us on what bone on bone means.
I mean, bone on bone means there's no synovial fluid there. There's nothing to help lubricate that action. So every time he takes a step, every time he runs, he feels it. That hurts, and that's going to limit you trying to run. His strength there at Appalachian State was he was very versatile, very fast. So if he's got those issues where bone on bone, every time he steps, every time he runs, that's definitely going to hinder him. I think if you look at it like Todd Gurley, if it's managed okay, it's going to be fine. He had his productions, injured it in college. He turned out okay. The last few years were a little bit rough for him. So I think if it's managed right, it's going to be fine. But it all kind of depends on where it is, because if you don't have some of those structures in one spot, you have a very limited area where that bone on bone actually is. It's something that's manageable. But I mean, it depends on how much of that is actually gone, because if his whole knee is tore up, his whole knee's tore up. But it's something that needs to be monitored. It's something that needs to be looked at by their medical staff, which can't take place until all this kind of quarantine stuff blows over. So it's something to watch at this point.
Yeah, Addy, now we go to you for your medical rebuttal to what Lee just said.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
His knee's blown, guys.
That knee is screwed up. I was trying to think.
It's
the
player
that's the medical terminology. Yes, I was trying to think of the other player that had bone on bone. Was that Todd Gurley, Lee?
I believe so.
Sony Michel.
Sony Michel. Okay. That was the other guy. Yeah. And we see Sony hasn't quite had the career, I think, that a lot of fans expected that he would. So definitely. It is a real issue. And I think just hearing this and seeing the draft capital, Logan Wilson is the guy I'm going to be looking at alongside Jermaine Pratt there in the Cincinnati linebacking core. Would you agree with that kind of ranking there, Mike?
Yeah, at this point, it's going to be Wilson. It's probably going to be Pratt. I think had Gaither had just a foot injury and the info about his knee hadn't surfaced, I think it would have affected Pratt a whole lot more for this year than it's going to. But yeah, I think for this year, I'd be comfortable targeting Pratt later in kind of that same area as Wilson. But yeah, I was just really bummed about Davis-Gaither, and because I thought he would have fit in really well with Cleveland. So I was kind of surprised that Cleveland didn't take him when they took, was it Brooks? A Jordan. I think they took a Jordan. I can't remember the linebacker's name offhand, but either way, I was kind of surprised. I thought he would have fit in well with his coverage abilities. So as soon as he started slipping, I'm like, something's up here.
Yeah, it was something that was kind of funny to monitor, and that was Jacob Phillips, it looks like the Browns took at 97, because that was something where it was like, why is this guy still on the board? That tweet comes out, and then the Bengals literally pick him about 15 minutes after that tweet drops.
Seriously, literally 15. It was like, all right, Cincinnati's up, Akeem Davis-Gaither. I'm like, you son of a...
Were they reading the tweet? Did they not care? Did they know about, I'm sure they know about the knee issue, but that is a little bit worrisome. And we'll see how it all shakes out. Cincinnati, another interesting team. We talked about the Cardinals on the rise. The Bengals, for me, are kind of that AFC equivalent where if Joe Burrow is the real deal, he is the rising tide that lifts all the boats for the Bengals.
Yep. And those linebackers, they'll be productive too, because teams are going to be, in shootouts like we saw in Arizona. Jordan Hicks, Budda Baker, all those guys were on the field so much, and we're definitely near the top of the league leaders.
Yep.
Yeah. So, guys, I want to wrap up here. That was the last player that we had to discuss. So, I want to end on this question because I think IDP players right now are trying to figure out who are the guys that I should be really thinking about in terms of adding players to my rosters. So, I want you all to think, and I'll go first to give you all some time to brainstorm. But as you look at this list, could be other guys not on this list as well. Who is the rookie that you think you will have the most shares of in 2020 and beyond? And for me, as much as the ambiguity is going to be frustrating, I think my most owned rookie is going to be Isaiah Simmons. For one reason, he is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Mm-hmm. And I know that's not necessarily the best approach when it comes to building your fantasy roster, but this is a guy, I'm just going to believe in the talent. I'm going to believe that he is going to find a role and find production, and the points will find him. So for me, it's going to be Isaiah Simmons. What about you, Addy?
It was actually the exact same thing. But maybe I have a little bit of a different answer as to why. It's just going to be cost. I think that he's going to slide. And I think you might be able to, and maybe not, maybe the name value will carry him. Yeah, and it'll go higher than we think. But I think he may slide to the back of the second, early third. And if that's the case, I'll scoop him there. I'm totally fine being patient, waiting on him because, again, I'm with you. I think he's special. He's someone that I just want to have on my team pretty much.
Yeah.
Extremely drippy. We know all that stuff.
We know he has the swag.
It would be pretty
drip
cool.
over everything.
Yes.
Right. Of course. It would be pretty cool to have him and Buddha both, on my team. So
absolutely. Yeah. Adam, Mike, if you didn't know, Adam's offseason has been driven by drip. Who has the swag, who has that kind of intangible, the tattoos, the hair, the cool, arm sleeves and stuff, the visors, all that. It all factors in.
Mike gets it. Mike
I got
some drip of his own. He gets
yes, he understands. So Lee, let's go to you. Who's going to be your most owned IDP rookie this year and beyond?
I'm really partial to Patrick Queen. I love watching him at LSU. He's just a phenomenal linebacker stepping into just the starting role of a Ravens defense that loves to dominate. He gets to the ball every time. So I think he's at a pretty good spot where I'd be okay taking him middle of the second. And I think getting that pivotal linebacker one on your team is really something that we all strive for because it's just rough to try to go and find these free agents to sign where they'll get you 12 points one game, but 2 points next in a row. And I really think Patrick Queen is going to be a guy that'll stay consistent for many years to come.
Yep. Don't have any disagreements there whatsoever, Leezus. So, Mike, let's wrap up with you. Who's the rookie that you're going to have the most shares of?
Well, I'm not in many leagues where I get points per smiles or points per joy or cheer. So I get that he's going to be fun to watch, and I can't wait for the Simmons-Kittle matchups. I think those are going to be really fun to watch. But no, he's a talented player, and I have, if he's your guy, I'm always a proponent. You know what? You can ask me who I like, but if you like a guy, you know what? I'm not going to talk you out. Go get your guy. Fantasy football is supposed to be fun. If you like somebody,
right,
go get him. Go get him. Who am I to say no? You can't take him. So no, Simmons is going to be certainly up there. But I think in terms of my target, I can definitely see me having a lot of shares of Patrick Queen this year. Maybe with Simmons a little bit behind, but definitely Patrick Queen will probably be the guy that I target.
Yeah, Mike, if you tell me not to own a guy, I'm not going to own him. So
you have a lot of power over here.
Yeah, seriously. Well, I got to join I'm going to join a couple of your leagues, and I'm going to be like, Josh, don't take Isaiah Simmons, don't take Chase Young. They're horrible. Don't draft
Don't
those.
take any fantasy relevant players at all.
That's right.
Yeah. They're all Mike.
I'm just have the little circles hypnosis on my eyes. I'm not going to be able to not do what you say. So, well, guys, this has been a lot of fun. Lee, we appreciate you pinch hitting tonight for Bobby. It was a lot of fun having you on the pod. We will definitely have you back here soon. You, to throw it to the ESPN kind of angle here for just a sec, you are actually on the front lines helping to keep people safe and healthy during this coronavirus pandemic. So thank you, sir, for your service to this country. and helping to keep people safe and well. So you stay safe and well yourself, man. I know this is a scary time, so stay safe. We'll have you back on the pod here soon. Thank you for all that you're doing. And Addy, always a pleasure, sir, to be in your presence in StreamYard or otherwise. Hope to be in the So Check. He is. I hope to be in the So Check with him very soon.
Yes, I think we're all just,
any sort of shack.
We're all overall just pleased. I think very pleasured and pleased. No doubt.
I've been pleased for the last hour and a half.
Absolutely. It's been a lot of fun. So, Mike, as always, man, we really appreciate you coming on and educating us. And we look forward to some of the work that you have coming up. So give us a plug, Twitter handle. What do you have coming up? What can we look forward to as far as your work?
Yeah, follow me Twitter at Mike Woellert, at Mike_Woellert. Always happy to talk IDP, talk everything. We're in that kind of now getting into it. So writing is starting. Have all the rookie articles that will be coming out shortly. And I'm just ready for some football. I'm ready for some real sports. So the draft was a good escape. And stay safe. Thank you. Stay healthy.
Yeah. Thanks, Lee. And Mike, so you have this rookie linebacker article coming out here pretty soon on 4for4.
Yeah.
I know you're doing some writing with DLF as well, so be sure to get a subscription to both of those sites. I have subscriptions to both. They're phenomenal. Your 4for4 article, you're still going to have the green dot over there this year, right?
Oh, yeah. I think at this point, if that were to leave, I think there would be some sort of a mutiny. I don't want any problems at 4for4 headquarters, so I'm going to, that'll definitely be returning. I think it's definitely going to be a staple.
All right, good. I'm glad to hear it. So go grab you a 4for4 subscription as well as one to Dynasty League Football. This is it for the Megapod. I think this is the first pod that's going to cross the 3-hour barrier for the Big 3 IDP podcast. So Mike, thanks for being part of history. We'll have you back on here very soon. If for no other pod than to talk about your Cleveland Browns when we do the AFC North preview series later this summer. But we'll have you on before then. So keep entertaining us and keeping us informed. And thank you all for listening. We hope you enjoyed the NFL draft. Hope you enjoyed this recap pod. And we'll see you guys next week with another episode of the Big 3 IDP podcast. Until then, signing off for Adam, Lee, and Mike. This is Josh. We will catch you all next week.